We're going to move now to our final speaker who needs no introduction to you all, I'm sure. Azian completed his studies in history and political science, and he joined the Dominican Order in 2006. He graduated in theology and then settled in Egypt in 2012, and he holds a doctorate in Islamology and wrote his thesis on the concept of truth in Ibn Taymiyyah's Ta'arud al-Aql wa Naql. Today he's going to speak about, he's going to actually probably the only talk that's really looking at heresiography and works of theology. So we're very glad that that is represented in our conference. And he's going to focus on the work of Šahrastānī, who, as you all know, is absolutely central to the development of Islamic theology. Please.
Thank you. As we all know, doxography in Islamic thought is extremely important in history, important for us too, not only because it offers many elements about trends, intellectual trends, whose original texts are often lost, but also because it offers implicitly sometimes a genuine history of thought, complete with structuring concepts. When the focus shifts more toward heresiography, and it's an important part of doxography in Islamic history, those structuring concepts may become error and truth, orthodoxy and heresy. But it does not imply necessarily a sketchy vision of this history. It is well known, for example, how nuanced a thinker as Al-Šahrastānī is. So nuanced, in fact, that for many centuries we were not aware that under the nice Asharite historian and theologian, there was a crypto-Ismailian, to show that it's quite objective. By the way, the same is true for Al-Ashari's Maqalat. We don't really know whether he wrote it while he was still a Mu'tazilite or after his conversion to the Ahl Sunnah. So doxography is useful to us because it allows us to make a history of a historiographical category. It brings a reflective dimension to our investigation. Salaf are not just individuals, they're now a category of the way you speak about history of thinking in Islam. That's why lexicon-focused approach is here absolutely logical, makes sense, focused on the term Salaf. Because once the word appears in the hand of doxographers, it is now a concept. And if you want to look at the concept of Salaf, that's an important place. And I would like to start with a quotation from Šahrastānī to show that it's not so easy. That it's about Al-Ashari's conversion. Following this, Al-Ashari turned away from him, from Al-Jubayhi, his master, joined the group of the Salaf, Ta'ifat al-Salaf, and supported the doctrine, meaning the madhab, based on a method now grounded in Kalam. We see that the Salaf are a ta'ifa, a group, and a madhab. Here, madhab is clearly not a legal school, but it seems to be more a way of thinking, a doctrine. But what is the exact meaning of Salaf here? If they can be both a group, you can join in the 10th century. I mean, if we speak about the 3 first generations of Muslims, how can you join them? I mean, we're not able because we're not living in that time. And even in the 10th century, it's a little bit late to be part of the 3 first generations. And then it's also a doctrine. To understand what it means in Al-Shahrastānī, I think we must broaden our investigation to include his predecessors in the doxographical tradition. And that is where we shall begin. Before his masterpiece, the Kitab al-Milal wal-Nihal, let's have a look at other heresiograpers, beginning in the 10th century with Al-Ash'ari himself, I was mentioning. In all the Kitab al-Maqalat, we find the word Salaf 3 times. And it's rather anecdotal, but nonetheless significant. Why? Because you can see the 2 first elements are, he's talking about, it's on the section about the e-body. So this group of Kharijites. And he said they exclude, he's talking about the Ibadiyya, among the Salaf, a list of names. Then it's not clear if we're talking about the same, because it's Kharijites who claim the following individuals as belonging to the Salaf, with a list of names, some of them being present in the first list, by the way. That's strange, probably they're not the same group. But we see that the mention of Salaf is about exclusion, about having a list. Who are they? Who are the Salaf we recognize? And among the groups present in Islam, there is no consensus, even among the Ibadiyya or the Kharijites. While at the same time, the third occurrence is about the Ahl Sunnah, who recognize the authority of the Salaf, the Haqq of the Salaf, who were those whom God chose for the companionship of his Prophet, and they uphold their virtues and refrain from commenting on the disputes that arose among them. So, the Salaf are here for the Ahl Sunnah, a way to show who they are. They are for all these groups a way to present themselves as in relationship with the Salaf. The list is not clear of who they are, but the Ahl Sunnah present themselves like the main supporters of the Salaf. Belonging or not to Sunnism is thus determined by one's position to the earliest generations. But everyone has their own Salaf, their own list of Salafs. At this stage, they are nothing more than a mark of affiliation, and certainly not a doctrine. I had a look also at Abu Bakr al-Baqillani, but it's more or less the same. Let's go to another author, quite different, the same century, Abu al-Hussein al-Malati. Once again, the relationship to the Salaf is a criterion of heresy for al-Malati, who's clearly a heresiographer, whose his book is quite polemical, aggressive towards the heretics. He notes the rejection of the Salaf among the Zaydis, who consider unbelievers, or more spectacularly here, among a Shi'i group he identifies as the people of Qom. So what do they think? They attack the Salaf and insult them violently, to the point that one of them takes an object or a dummy stuffed with straw or wool and names it Abu Bakr or Omar or Uthman and beats it with a stick until it is smashed into pieces, thus appeasing the resentment he holds in his heart against those who believed. So you see the aggressivity toward the Salaf among this Shia group. people of Qum. This reproach is also directed at the Kharijites and other heretics, whose error Al-Malati reports. The rejection of the Salaf is a very serious crime, as you can see, because so the second element, it's about the Najdiyya, the followers of Najda al-Haruri. Who's that guy? He came down from the mountains of Oman, killed children, enslaved women, shed blood, and authorized rape and plunder. He considered the Salaf and the successors to be unbelievers. So you see the list of crimes. He's killing everyone and he's attacking the Salaf. Yeah, that's serious. By contrast, the same author presents the Salaf as the sign of his perfect orthodoxy when he explains what's his perspective, his personal perspective. Then after the messenger came the truthful Siddiq Abu Bakr, and then Omar, and then Uthman, and then Ali. They are the models, the master, the radiant signs, the proof. Have you heard anything from them other than warnings against bid'ah and novelties? It has been transmitted from them that every innovation is a bid'ah, and every bid'ah is a misguidance. Thus, what I have written here is a fortress against innovation and protection, and it's a protection for me and for the believers. So take what I have given you and hold fast to it with all your being, for what it contains rests of foundation on proof and on the paths of the Salaf. The madhab. Here we have the madhab of the Salaf again. For the first time we see it, by the way. Because this madhab, it seems to be the path, the way we have to follow after the Salaf. But this, if we finish with this 10th century, we see that we have already a fairly coherent pattern. The Salaf are mainly the criterion for orthodoxy. Moving to Abu Mansur al-Baghdadi, we find something quite different. So we are a century later, we are in the beginning of the 5th century, of the 11th century. And Abu Mansur al-Baghdadi provided an important work, Al-Farq Bayn al-Firaq, that is important in itself, but it's also important in our understanding of Šahrastānī, because Al-Farq was merely a summary of a much more extensive and now lost work entitled Kitab al-Milal wal-Nihal. The title Šahrastānī took for his own masterpiece. And it also marks a substantial turning point in terms of content, as we can see. The Salaf here are very present, not 3 times like in the Maqalat of al-Ash'ari. But they no longer play the same role. On the one hand, they now appear first and foremost in opposition to the Mu'tazilites and no longer to the Shiites or the Kharijites. For the latter, opposing the Salaf meant hating them, we saw that, insulting them. Now, opposing the Salaf means disagreeing with them on the substance, on real doctrinal points. This is the case, for instance, with Al-Nazzam, when he claims that God created all things simultaneously, without precedence or sequence in the creative act. With this assertion, he contradicts what the Salaf of the community have agreed upon, as well as the people of the book, Jews, Christians, and Samaritans, namely, that God, the Most High, created the tablet and the pen before the creation of the heavens and the earth. The only disagreement among Muslims concerned the question whether the sky or the heaven, sorry, or the earth was created first. You see, here we have an agreement of all the Muslims, that is the agreement of the Salaf, and the Mu'tazilites, like An-Nazam, are in opposition with it. He gives other examples of the same movement. Wasil ibn Atta, for instance, distanced himself. So that's the origin for him of the name I'tizal, Mu'tazila. He distanced himself from the Salaf, precisely. That's because of it, by introducing, regarding grave sins, the well-known doctrine of the manzila bayn manzilatayn. But he also attributes to the Salaf very special legal ideas about how the had has to be used against women, etc., and so on. Not to enter into details, but that's important because it's not only a question of theological doctrine, but also of law. For the first time in our sources, the Salaf are not longer simply a list one either adheres to or not. They are now portrayed as bearers of actual doctrinal or legal positions. Equally innovative is the lengthy treatise. This treatise, includes an entire section on the proper stance that of the Ahl Sunnah toward the Salaf. It records the unanimous consensus of the Ahl Sunnah that the Muhajirun and the Ansar were all believers, that you cannot find among them any unbeliever. None of them in particular apostatized during the Ridda after the Prophet's death. And they will constitute the major part of the 70,000 people that, according to Hadith, will enter the paradise without judgment. This impossibility of falling into unbelief also extends to the Prophet's wives and to the members of his family, especially the Alids. So it's from a very Sunni author, it's a way to say, no, we respect absolutely the family of Ali. They are all saints, with exceptions, those who fell into Haqtain, I'tizal, or Rafd. So, of course, the Alids who became Mu'tazila or Shia, there is a problem. But the rest of them are perfect. This benevolence descends upon the followers. No, it was here, yeah. They affirm their loyalty to the great figures among the Tabi'un, who followed the companions bi ihsan. The three-generation scheme has not yet taken shape. There are no followers of the followers, but there is a generalized benevolence toward all the Muslims, except those who have embraced a religion, another religion, or joined a falsely Islamic sect, in particular, namely the Qadarites, the Murjites, the Rafida, the Kharijites, the Jahmiyites, the Najjarites, and the Mujassima. So this makes a lot of people. To go to Šahrastānī now. You remember that he begins the kitab with 5 introductions. The important one is the 4th, and beginning in the 4th, we find very familiar elements. The idea that the Salaf had doctrinal assertions, and the idea, for instance, that An-Nazam departed from the Salaf. It comes probably directly from al-Baghdadi. With a difference. In Al-Šahrastānī's book, it's only about theology. When he speaks of the Salaf, it's never linked with legal issues. It's only linked with theology and mainly about the question of the attributes of God. The Salaf have a doctrine, but the doctrine is just the affirmation of the attributes, nothing else. In the part of the kitab where he speaks about legal issues and the ulama fil fiqh, the furu part has nothing, never speaks about the Salaf. So the Salaf have this doctrine on the attributes. We see that now the Salaf opposed them, speaks about the Mu'tazilites on this point, negating the attributes, because they found that the attributes were mentioned in the book and the Sunnah. Abu Mansur has said the opposite, that the Mu'tazilite opposed the Salaf. The idea of Abu Mansur was we have the Salaf, the doctrine of the Salaf, and the Mu'tazilite came later and they opposed to it. Now, what do we see? The Salaf opposed to the Mu'tazilite as if they came later. And that's probably what he means, but that's strange. If the Salaf opposed them, then they are contemporaries of the Mu'tazila. No longer the pious ancestors, but the protagonists in the theological debate between the Mu'tazilites and their opponents. Indeed, he continues, in this time, in the time of Abu Musa al-Murdar, the most severe persecutions took place against the Salaf because of their affirmation of the eternity of the Quran. So we're talking about the Mihna. We're talking about the caliphate of Al-Ma'mun. It's a little bit late to be the Asr al-Salaf. He even generalizes. There were, in every age, fi kull zaman, disagreements between the Mu'tazilites and the Salaf regarding the attributes. The Salaf debated them not according to theological method, but by persuasive discourse. And they were called the Sifatiyya. The strange part here is fi kull zaman. I mean, the Salaf become not a generation or a group of generations, but a doctrinal position that is quite eternal. They can debate anytime about this question. It's not in actual history. The Salaf seem to have become a lasting school, a rival to the Mu'tazilites, no longer merely a set of companions. But what is exactly that school of the Salaf? Is it simply another name for the Ahl Sunnah or the Hanabila, opponents of the Mu'tazilites, who are now called Salaf, probably because they assumed to venerate the Salaf? The situation becomes more complex when we look more closely. There are, we'll see that, later people, then some among the later authors, went beyond what the Salaf had said, asserting that one must adhere to the literal sense, and thus fell into pure anthropomorphism, which contradicts the belief of the Salaf. So we have people among the Ahl Sunnah who contradict the Salaf. They do not believe them, and we are here with mutaakhirun. We have with later authors, but being part of this school, but contradict the Salaf. So they are Salaf, they contradict the Salaf. How is it possible? If we need a bit of clarity, let's follow. We see what he says. The strange, yeah. Just after this one, he says that's where he writes. Yet a group among the Salaf adhered to literal interpretation and fell into tashbih. Here it's a group, min as-Salaf, who made tashbih. So probably, are they the same? Probably. But the Salaf seems to be, at the same time, the doctrine, the real doctrine that is not linked with tashbih, and the name of the group, of the people falling into tashbih. We need maybe some chronology, and Šahrastānī provides it. As for the Salaf who engage in neither interpretation, ta'wil, nor anthropomorphism, among them is Malik ibn Anas, who said, the famous istiwa is known, its modalities are unknown, the bila kayfa. The same held true for Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Sufyan al-Thawri, Dawood ibn Ali al-Isfahani, and those who followed them. This gives us a fairly wide bracket, because Sufyan al-Thawri died in 778, while Dawood al-Zahiri in 884. So 1 century of difference. And this pushes, if we admit Dawood al-Zahiri, this pushes the Salaf period far forward. But it seems probably that why are Ibn Hanbal and Dawood al-Zahiri present in that list? Probably not as Salaf as a generation, but as creators of a legal school. It's more a Salaf wal A'imah that will be very used later. The idea that we can add to the Salaf as a generation also the creator of the legal schools. And that's quite probable because of what we see, that the quotation that comes just after. Then the time came of Abdullah ibn Sa'id al-Kullabi, Abu al-Abbas al-Qalanisi, and al-Harith ibn Asad al-Muhasibi. Ibn Kullab or al-Muhasibi actually precede Dawood al-Zahiri. They are contemporaries of Ibn Hanbal. But what matters is not historical order, but doctrinal alignment. They are called Salaf because they hold the position of the Salaf. This is confirmed in the later passage. As for Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Dawood ibn Ali al-Isfahani, and a group among the Imams of the Salaf, they followed the path of the early Salaf among the people of Hadith, such as Malik ibn Anas and Muqatil ibn Sulaiman. So, that's strange. Here we have the Salaf and the Imams of the Salaf who followed the path of the early Salaf. So we have different moments of Salafity, different stages. If we try to understand well, we observe a distinction between early Salaf and later leaders of the Salaf trend. This confirms our hypothesis. The term Salaf originally designates a group of early Islam, but only certain individuals, those who engaged in theological debates about divine attributes, interpreted literally without falling in anthropomorphism. This gradually evolved into a school, that's the second meaning, still called Salaf, though with some deviations toward anthropomorphism noted in certain figures, but not generalized. This transformation of a group into a school explains the two expressions that Šahrastānī uses while he describes al-Ash'ari's conversion. He joined the group of the Salaf, and then he adopted the Tariqat al-Salaf, consisting in refraining from any interpretation. So we see you have two uses of the same word, some ancient thinkers and their direct followers, and a school that is, in the end, a synonym of Sunnism. He's talking about Sunni when he says the Salaf. Those who support the Sunni theology. So we are from the historical figures to an important branch of Islam. To conclude this journey through geographical literature, from lexical references to doctrinal elaboration, shows how the figure of the Salaf shifted over time. In Al-Šahrastānī's work, the transformation is complete. The Salaf are no longer the revered early generations, but they become a doctrinal category, a theological school with its own figure, doctrines, and even internal debates. The idea of a timeless opposition between Salaf and Mu'tazilites, present in Kull Zaman, is not historical, maybe more rhetorical. It marks the emergence of the Salaf as a structural, religious, theological front. In this sense, the madhab of the Salaf is not a legal school at all, but it's a recognizable interpretation of the tradition with boundaries and guardians, the one of Sunnism. Thank you.